Hello and welcome back to Angular 2 Masterclass with Alejandro Rangel. In this section, we are going to talk about routing. In order to work with routing, you need to learn single page application, routing outlet, routing config, and routing link. So let's start digging into the topic. So single page application or SPA, if you come from Angular 1, probably you know this concept, but a single page application means that all the logic and navigation of our website is inside of the front-end code. That means that if you go from one page to the next one, you don't need to go to the server and to get another page, another HTML page, and render it in the browser. In a single page application, what normally we do is that we get a JSON data from the server, and the framework, in this case Angular, is smart enough to render every view that the user requests. So we don't have to go to the server every time that we need to render a page. In the opposite side, we have traditional websites where every time that the user wants another page, and the browser makes a request to the server renders the page and sends it back to the browser. In single page applications, the server only sends the index.html, and then the framework will take care of the navigation and routing. So this is why we have to learn this topic. Routing in Angular 2 is an optional library. It's exactly the same case as the HTTP library. They are not embedded in the Angular 2 core, as it could be the component, directive, and everything that we have learned in previous chapters. So HTTP and routing are external and optional libraries. We need to import this library in the index.html before working with what the routing provides to us. Also, we need to tell Angular in the bootstrapping process in the main file that we are using this external dependency. So, what is a router outlet? If you think about a single page application, you know that there is one area of your website that will be always changing depending of the URL that you are pointing to. So if you think about this square, this blue square, this is the main area of our website. And in this case, we could define that this is our router outlet, and Angular will know that it has to put every page that the user requests in this area. This is not totally true in Angular 2 because they make it even more nice, because you can have several router outlets, so different areas in the same view at the same time. This is something that it was not possible in the version number 1 from Angular, but in Angular 2 you can have several areas at the same time. To keep it simple, we will focus only in displaying one single component at a time in a router outlet. So let's make an example of this. And if the user in our website go to the home page and he type home, for example, then Angular will know that it should render the home component inside the router outlet. So it will fill this gap with everything that is inside the home component, and that is what that it was defined in the template of this component. If later on the user navigates to the login, so he points the URL to login, then Angular will know that it should render in the router outlet the template from the login component, and so on. So this is what we call a router outlet. Router config is very important, and it's one of the critical parts of configuring the router, because we need to tell Angular and to our component how it should handle all these routes. So we need to specify the path. This is what we were explaining before. So in order to the router to render a specific component, it should know which are the routes that it has to listen in the browser URL. Then we have a name. This is just an alias for referring to this route later on. And also we need to specify which is the component that we have to render when the user specify a certain path. So this is a real example. This is from the last application that we are going to do in this masterclass, that is the MyTunes application. And we can see here that inside our main component, we are specifying that there is a part in the template that is a router outlet. So every time that we navigate in this application, we will fill the router outlet with information from the template from the specific component that we are browsing. Okay. The second part of the configuration is specifying the decorator with the route config and all the path that this component should listen to and which component we should initialize in this route. So this is the way that we configure a router in our application. The router link, it's just the way to tell Angular how to behave when we want to navigate from one route to the next one. So in this case, we have a button, and this button is using the router link to say, okay, if you click in this button, we should go to the route that we name home. Remember in the route configuration that we have different names like home, albums, album, login, and registration. So later on with the router link, we can point to any of them.